From a closet, also known as the Jim McCarthy Voiceovers World Headquarters Studio, this is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast.
Yes, this is the JMVO Weekly Primer. I'm actually doing something different on this particular podcast, even though I haven't put out a podcast in quite a while. Doing it solo, just kind of not really doing it with a guest this time. And it's towards a group that I just recently started called the Blue Collar Voiceover Association. And for those of you that are in the group, this is a podcast that I do whenever I get around to it. I produce a lot of different podcasts, and of course mine is kind of the cobbler's shoes scenario. It doesn't exactly get the love that it deserves, so whenever I get around to actually doing it, that's when I get around to doing it. So a lot of good topics have come up in this Blue Collar Voiceover Association. If you're not familiar with it, even if you're not in voiceover, I have a feeling a lot of the topics will be applicable to those who are in the creative space overall. So if you're in photography, if you're in videography, if you're in graphic design, writing, any of those things where they're kind of being disrupted, and disrupted in a good way, where people complain about rate degradation and rate shaming goes on a lot with some of the legacy elite talent, as we talk about. One of the things that we're going to talk about in this episode is the rate shaming, as well as Hamburger Clients. It's a term that I coined a couple of years back that, the rate shaming exists because of the Hamburger Clients. Some people call them lowball clients and stuff like that. I call them hamburger. It's still food. They're still nurturing. They're still beneficial, extremely beneficial, a lot more than one would imagine, especially for somebody who's just starting out. And what I'll do is I'll talk about the virtues and the things you need to wrap your head around when it comes to a hamburger client. And also, like I said, we'll cover the topic of rate shaming a little bit more. A good buddy of mine, Will Stauff, who's a member of the group, is a Fiverr, like one of the leading Fiverr guys out there, very big on it, very successful with it, and has come up with his own Facebook group and coaches people on how to successfully navigate that website. It's not something that I've really gotten into myself, just because weak excuse alert. I just don't have the time to work it. I have my own ways of doing things, and again, with me putting this stuff out there, what my promise to you is all stuff that I've used that has worked for me. It's not gospel. I'm not saying that these are absolutist, that you have to follow these guidelines. My desire purely is to help, is to want to help people, and, to see everybody become better for it, okay? Ultimately, getting into the hamburger client stuff. What is a hamburger client? It's a client that comes out of the woodwork that is either not familiar with what the rates in voiceover are, or thinks that, $20, $10, $15 should get something, you only put 5 or 10 or 15 minutes of work into it. How much do you really want? We can't blame them for that. That cannot be something that we chastise or demonize. If some people just don't know any better, they don't know any better. And it's our opportunity to teach them about the business and what can be expected. Now, that's the one virtue that you can probably lead off with. It's an opportunity. Always an opportunity. Whenever somebody is reaching out to you with an interest to use your goods, your service, or anything else that you're offering, it's an opportunity on numerous levels. Numerous levels. First and foremost, it's to form a new relationship. That's extremely important, because when you have so many people in the creative space that have been onboarding, for the past couple of years, even decades, as technology has become less expensive and the barrier to entry into some of these spaces has become less and less, you have to contend with the shifting marketplace. And a lot of it's going to be based on relationships, the relationships you make. And it all starts with how you handle that first phone call, that first email out of the door. All right? That relationship is of utmost importance. It's going to sharpen your selling process. This is virtue number 2, sharpening your selling process, because you're going to have to get better at not only becoming better at your craft, your skill, but you're going to have to be better at negotiating and understanding a basic, fundamental selling process when it comes to doing what you do. And ultimately nurturing that relationship. So sharpening your selling process, meaning you get an email from somebody. Typically, that's how it's going to start. It could be Messenger, it could be on Instagram, any way that they reach out to you and start that opportunity, that golden opportunity to create that relationship. How do we get FaceTime? How do I get you on the phone and talk to you so I can listen? Listening's huge. Anytime you're selling anything, listening to their problem, asking the right strategic questions to solve their problem is absolutely imperative. Because a lot of the time, with the right line of questioning, they will tell you how to sell them. They'll tell you exactly where it hurts and how you can help. Because all we're really doing is solving their problem. That's one of the other things I talk about is the hashtag #BeThemCentric. You'll see me posted on some of my social media. It's just something I throw out there, something I've always used and said, hey, it's time to be them centric. It's not about you. They're calling for you to solve their problem. And anytime you do it on social media, anytime you post on Instagram or LinkedIn, it's so far less about you and more about them. And the more you position and have that frame of mind that it's more about them, the more you're going to win. The more you're willing to give and ask the right questions, the more you're going to win. So get that FaceTime. Figure out a way to get them on the phone. And you better have something that's in it for them. It's much better for me to be able to talk to you in order to show you what you're going to get out of this amazing experience. I could do it over email if you like, if that's your preference. But is there a way, can we get on a phone call for 5 or 10 minutes? Sure, why not? Because at that point, you have a much easier time setting up your value proposition. Now that value proposition, and this is a lot of selling fundamentals that I'm getting into here, that value proposition only comes after you've done some fact finding, after you've uncovered what their pain is. Why are they coming to you? Have they used other people before? Have those other people pissed them off because it made it all about themselves? They wanted to chastise them because they came to the table with a $50 read or a $40 read. And they said, I don't crack my mic for anything less than $350 or insert price here. Which I have heard before in the past from talent that I've wanted to hire. And for whatever project I was working on. And they would give me that and say, I just don't understand why the rates on this are so low. This is what it should pay, yada, yada, yada. Look, buddy, I understand. The reality is this is what the pay is for literally 5 to 10 minutes of your time. Every time they come back, month after month, if not week after week. So it adds up. Do you really have a problem with that? Yes. Okay. I'll find somebody else. Guess what? I've never hired the guy again. Nor will I. Probably never again. And you know what? He's probably doing just okay without me. And I'm fine with that. I have no problem with anybody, the way they make their business. I just expect that kind of sentiment from other people. So getting to the value proposition, that phone call, that interaction face-to-face will allow you to set up your value proposition. You better have one. You better be able to think on the fly and enjoy the dance when they're actually laying out exactly how you can help them. Value proposition is extremely important. What about your services are they going to get? And if they come to the table with a rate that's a little bit below what you're anticipating, how can you upsell them? That's another aspect of how you can sharpen your selling skills. Getting face time, value proposition, and upselling. Being able to set up an upsell is talent, is a certain amount of talent and moxie, because it takes a little courage to ask for more money. And there are various ways to do it, a lot of different ways to do it. And it all ties into that value, that uncovering. That's probably the most pivotal part, is finding out where it hurts for them. This way you can put all these things in. And of course, closing the deal. Because without a close, we can talk about selling and selling fundamentals till we're blue in the face. But closing is of utmost importance, because if you don't close, we lose. We lose in that moment. Let me put it that way. All right. And the third virtue of Hamburger Clients, you learn how to pivot in the dance. Hey, I've only got, a $40 budget or whatever. And maybe if in reality, it's a $150 job. There are two ways to go about it. Of course, upselling. I really love this project. I really want to be a part of it. I'm trying to figure out how I can really help you and also get to where I need to be in terms of rate and everything. Is it possible? I really want to be a part of it so much so I'm willing to discount and give you all the things that I've laid out. You're going to get multiple takes. You're going to get retakes. I'm going to go above and beyond what it is that I'm going to bring to the table. So learning how to pivot in the dance. If they're ardently sticking to their rate, at that point, in your mind, can you still do the job for what they can pay and maximize your time on it? Meaning, okay, well, I could still do this. And in reality, I could probably give them everything I'm talking about, and it'll only take me 5 to 10 minutes. Are you really going to have a problem with that? And that's a question you need to ask yourself. Are you going to have a problem with making $40 in 5 to 10 minutes of your time? And I know that a lot of things come into it. The amount of money you spent on equipment, coaching, all the time you put into practice, all the different things to develop yourself to where you are now. I get all those things. But guess who doesn't care about those things? The client in front of you, unless you make them care. And that, again, goes back to that value proposition. And it's still something that's not exactly, that's great. I understand you spent all this money on it, but how's that important to me? And explaining that to them. Well, because this mic is the top of the food chain when it comes to technology. It's going to give you the best sound. I've done through all these coaching courses to get me this far along. You've heard my stuff. This is why we're here talking right now. Imagine how your stuff's going to sound once we're done. Okay? All those little items. The fourth point, in terms of working with a Hamburger client, they get to see what it's like to work with you. So even if you take $40 or hell, $25, whatever it is, they still get to see what it's like and experience what it's like to work with you. And of course, I'm talking in the sense of voiceover here. I know photography and graphic design all command their own rates and stuff like that. So I'm thinking in the voiceover world. They get to see what it's like to work for you or work with you. You get to put on a show. And it's very important because it leads us to the next virtue, the next point here. No one wants to stay where they are. Everybody wants to move up where they are. So whether you're working for a producer that's new to the company where they are, it is your job to make them a flaming advocate of you. Because eventually, they may move up in the company, or they may go to a company that now can pay you what your rate is. And guess what? When you show up, they're going to remember, man, that guy, that girl, they were a lot of fun to work with. They were really cooperative. They were easy. They were, they gave us what we needed. I felt like we were valued as their client. It was far less about what they were getting and more about what we were getting. Yeah, let's go with them. I remember having a great experience with them. That great experience will carry you thousands of miles. Thousands and thousands of miles. They get to see what it's like to work with you. So put on a show. Because that person may not stay where they are. Everyone wants to move up. The sixth point, referrals. Now, a lot of people, myself included, I'm guilty of it, fail to ask at the end of the interaction or the exchange of the service, hey, was this experience everything you thought it would be and more? Yeah, it was really great. We're really going to come back and give you a lot more business. That's terrific. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Who else do I need to be helping out? Who else do you think would think that this might be of value? Is there anybody that you might think of right now, one or two people, that I could just, kind of put a bug in their ear and let them know that you recommended that I call them? And maybe even, if you could, reach out and warm them up for me so they're expecting my call. Not that I'm going to, data dump on them. They're going to get the same exact experience you got. I'm going to, just basically a call. I hate using the word touch base, but I'm going to touch base and let them know, hey, so-and-so told me to reach out. I just wanted to make an introduction. They seem to really like working with me for these reasons. I'm wondering if you maybe have the same kind of reasons or desires to have somebody in your roster to help you. And you never know where that may go. You never know. And the seventh reason, the seventh virtue of a hamburger client, guys, it's just economically smart. All right? We can go on social media right now and find somebody who seems to be the smartest person they've ever met and is doing everything right and living their best life. And just, is putting on that veneer of they're an absolute rock star when it comes to what they're doing, whether it be marketing, whether it be branding, voiceover, it could be selling and being a salesman. It just seems we are being bombarded with somewhat inauthentic, I'll just say it, it's actually coined from an earlier episode that I had with Michael Drew, the last one that I did about a month ago, douchebag marketers, which I think is a hilarious term. I didn't get to coin it. I heard it from Michael Drew first, so I'm giving him credit. All right? We are living in one hell of an economy right now. Everybody seems to be doing great. If you really go back and look at economic cycles, and you're old enough to remember the bloodbath that happened in '08, or old enough to remember experiencing it. I mean, it's one thing having your parents go through it, but it's another thing to actually have felt the effects of it. Not to alienate anybody who's young listening to this. It was tough to get work then. It was really tough. Nobody wanted to spend any money. Okay? If you're not developing these hamburger relationships that could potentially turn into steak, that could be a problem. If you're going on Facebook and any of these other voiceover groups or creative groups and lambasting a client because they lowballed you, how dare they? You really need to look inward and analyze that. Is it really going to kill you to accommodate your rate for a client that maybe the next one they bring to the table could be a steak client. And all of a sudden you're getting $350, $400, $500 a read on a national spot or whatever, a regional spot. All right, and I understand that there are nuances on how things should be, and you've got the rate cards out there, and you've got agents and stuff like that. Agents are pretty much people that are salesmen that are there to sell you because they think they can make money off of you. The whole thing about me and the whole thing about being a blue-collar voiceover or blue-collar creative is being able to sell yourself and understand that it's less about you, far less about you than it is about them, about your client. Serving your client unapologetically because they're the ones that will likely be there for you when the economy turns or adjusts. The state clients, hey, you apply the same rules to them. You have to. Of course you would. But it's just economically smart. It's economically in your best interest to consider this. Because not everybody is going to be a rock star. And this is where I'll kind of parlay and shift into the rate shaming aspect of this. Again, my good buddy Will Stauff, he actually put this article up in Blue Collar Voiceover Association. Check it out. Recently. From a gentleman named Jonathan Lockwood. And I found it, I read it, and I'm like, wow, this couldn't have popped up and been more relevant because I wanted to do a breakdown on the Hamburger Client like I'm doing right now. I was actually going to try and do it this week, but I felt compelled to do it right now. I'm doing it live on Facebook in the group. So Jonathan Lockwood says that he's actually responding to another voiceover talent who seems to engage in rate shaming. And his whole premise of this blog from this other voiceover talent named Paul Strickwerda. We'll just call him Paul S. His whole premise was basically, hey, we need each other. Now, I've been saying for many, many, many years that the whole linking of arms for rate integrity in the voiceover industry is absolutely ludicrous. Okay? Because at the end of the day, if I can't pay my mortgage, I'm going to guess that a lot of my contemporaries in the industry are not going to willingly come forward and offer to pay my mortgage. It is up to me as a father, a husband, family man, to make sure I pay my mortgage and do what is within the skill set that I have to fulfill the duties towards my family and make sure that we have food on the table and all that other good stuff. So Jonathan's take is, no, we don't need each other. I kind of agree. Paul S. is disappointed in the other voiceover talent, and I'm reading from Jonathan's blog here, which is actually linked from Will's, so many names going on here, from Will's post in the group, so you can check it out there. Paul is disappointed in other voice talent for often not charging enough. They are driving rates down for the rest of us, and we need them to cooperate. In the Facebook post accompanying his article, he expresses his position that we all have a shared responsibility. And another quote is, it means standing up for common interests and having each other's backs. It refers to a friendly spirit of cooperation. As far as I'm concerned, we have a common goal to deliver the best service, to increase our standards, and to ensure that we're getting paid a fair and decent rate. I couldn't agree more with that. Best service, our standards, ensure that we're getting paid a fair and decent rate. Those are all subjective terms, though, aren't they? Paul's position is fairly common. It's not, if not universal. It's a conflict that reveals itself almost everywhere, coming down to a choice between collectivism and individualism. The collectivists are full of expressions about friendliness, kindness, and respect, as long as you subscribe to their ideology. Boy, does that sound familiar. But what about freedom of choice? Replies Paul, quote, This whole free country argument is a load of bull used by imbeciles to defend all kinds of idiotic practices. And Jonathan Qualif, well, doesn't that sound like a, quote, friendly spirit, does it? And a lot of things that kind of point out with the rate shamers out there. If you, God forbid, go into any of these other voiceover communities and put groups on Facebook or creative groups in general, and you're starting out, there are going to be some people that are very benevolent and are willing to help you. But trust me, you are being judged by those lurking that really want to let you have it because they just don't like the noobs. They want things to remain the same. They feel like they deserve, as this blog puts it, and I'll try and pull it up here, a right to permanence. I think it's a beautiful way, a perfect way of putting exactly what I've been trying to say, a right to permanence. That people coming up, that have come up, that have done voiceover as long as I have, 20 years or more, that, hey, this is the way it's always been done. It is my right to have my life not to be disrupted. But at the same time, they'll tell you that they're not worried about it because they're doing just fine. So again, what do they have to worry about? So when you have rate shaming going on, it probably means you're on the right path. And at the end of the day, the people that are doing the rate shaming aren't going to pay your bills. You have to do what you have to do. I'm a big fan of technology is like a freight train coming down the tracks. It doesn't care who's standing on them. All right, you either adapt and figure it out and learn how to compete amongst the throngs of people that have gotten on board into just the voiceover industry itself. But there's no reason why you should feel shamed about what you're willing to charge. There's only so low you can go. All right? A lot of people coming on board are just happy getting in front of a mic and honing their craft. They're happy doing an audition for free. Over and over and over again. And the people who get paid very well are happy to do auditions for free. Over and over and over again. I remember working with a voice talent, Sam O'Neill, back in Vegas. And I had just started up a new company, side hustle, when I was in radio. And at one point, because he and I got really friendly, one of my mentors, I would say, and he said, hey, how come you don't have me on your voiceover roster? Because I was paying $50 a read, and I sold the commercial spot for $100. This is back in 2002. So it happened then. I said, Sam, I never thought to ask you because I figured that you were on a whole other level, doing discovery documentaries. And, he was the imaging voice for probably 40, I don't know, maybe 60 radio stations. And he was on 30 television stations. The guy was everywhere. Why would you want to work for $50? He's like, no, it's $50. And it's one of those things that stuck with me. Here's a guy that doesn't need the work. He's working every day using his voice. But he was still willing to humble himself and say, you know what? Yeah, I'd love to be part of your roster. Now, ultimately, I didn't put him on because he would probably outshine the rest of us. So, may he rest in peace. Sam O'Neill, look him up. He's got some terrific stuff. I actually have his demo on my YouTube page somewhere. But again, if you're listening to this, and it's encouraged you, made you rethink about being shamed, about what you charge, if you put it out there. That is your business. That is your business, literally. Don't be ashamed of it. If that's what you can get, if anything, again, going back to those tenets of the Hamburger Client, use the selling fundamentals. Those little selling fundamentals. And I'll probably do a video here soon breaking that down. Just the road to the sale, the basics to getting from, the 50-yard line to the goal line. Always be learning those aspects, because I think the biggest things you can be wary of in this business as we go along and more disruption happens and more people hang shingles and put it out there that they want to be a voiceover talent or a photographer, even though they're using an iPhone, that kind of stuff. But it works. Is selling fundamentals. It's going to be your biggest tool in your toolbox. The other one is relationship building. People, if you have good relationships, I don't care if you're the best at what you do. If you're a diva or a jerk to work with, it's going to be disastrous for you. Nobody. I don't care who you are. Nobody likes working with a jerk or a diva. Everyone likes to hang out, have fun, especially in a creative environment. When you're able to hang out and have fun, guess what happens? Creativity begets creativity when you're having fun. More things get done. More things happen magically when everybody's in that same fun, mind space. So be that person. If they want to reread, you know what? And you made them understanding, you set the expectation that, hey, if I got to read the entire spot again, yeah, I kind of got to get paid. But, if you got a line or two that you need me to take care of, more than happy to take care of it for you. By the way, who else do you know that could use what I do? Build your business. Build your business. And as long as you have the time to make a buck doing what you do, great. Until you don't have the time and you're getting a ton of business rolling in, yeah, it's supply and demand. That's where you can raise your price and your rates, but you should always be practicing to do that. Ultimately, find out where your clients are in terms of that, though. And that's what that first phone call does for you. But if you really had value in this episode, I'll cut it off now. I'm going up for about a half an hour. I'm actually thinking about either branching off onto a new podcast that's specific to the voiceover part of what I do and calling it the Blue Collar Voiceover Podcast or something along the lines of that, or just keeping it as the JMVO Weekly Primer. I don't know. What do you think? I'm a big fan of of holding the audience. Let me know what you think. But of course, subscribe, share it with your friends. Let me know if there are any other topics you'd like me to cover. I'd be happy to. And we'll check you out at a later date. Hit me up if you ever want to. I'm at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com. And of course, at the new Facebook group, if you're in voiceover, or hell, even if you're in a creative space, I think we're going to cover a lot of topics that will help out a lot of people in different creative spaces, even though it's voiceover specific. Check out Blue Collar Voiceover Association on Facebook, and I'll even put a link in the description of this video. Subscribe, rate, and share with your friends. Thanks for listening. Let me know how it can help you.
This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com /podcast.